Hi, this is The Greatest Story Ever Played. I'm Dan, and with me are Alex and Duncan from Thoughts from Player One. Why don't you introduce each other? Or yourselves.
I'm Alex from Thoughts from Player One.
And I'm Duncan.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, guys. We are going to be talking about Coffee Talk. Also, you should definitely check out their podcast. They do a lot of similar stuff to us, hitting up story-driven games, kind of episode at a time. It's good stuff. They've covered stuff like Life is Strange and really a lot of other games we've covered too.
Ha! If you look at our download numbers, you would never know we covered anything other than Life is Strange. Love Life is Strange content with good reason.
Do you get that Life is Strange stream? That those big numbers for your Life is Strange?
Oh yeah, there was a while where like half of our top 10 episodes were all Life is Strange. Oh,
I feel that. I feel that in my bones. People love that game, and like the community is super active, and fucking more power to them. 100%.
Yeah, we love you guys.
100%. Yeah, great stuff. And we're going to talk about Coffee Talk, but at the end, we're going to go more into depth about Thoughts from Player One, so definitely stick around for that to get to hear more about their show and all of that. So, yeah, I guess with that, we'll jump into why you're here, which is to hear about Coffee Talk. So first, we've got a description of the game, which I'll grab for us, which is Coffee Talk is a game about listening to people's problems and helping them by serving up a warm drink out of the ingredients you have in stock. It's a game that depicts lives as humanly as possible while having a cast that is more than just humans. Immerse yourself in stories of alternative Seattle inhabitants, ranging from the dramatic love story between an elf and a succubus, an alien trying to understand how humans live, and many other modern readers will find strongly echo with the world around them. So that's kind of the game we're getting into. Probably, a fair description.
I would call it that.
And then one, I guess, bit of background info is it was developed by Toge Productions, who have made a lot of games, including Infectornator, Relic of War, and Days to Die. I'm not familiar with any of them. I don't know about either of you.
I feel like I've 100% for sure heard the name Relic of War, but also that may have been a subtitle to a Dawn of War game. I'm not 100% sure. That might be what I'm thinking of. But this does not, based on the titles, this does not seem like their other games. I don't know that for sure, but I would not go so far as to say Relic of War or Days to Die is a coffee shop simulation game.
they definitely walked outside of those other ones.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Cool. I guess with that, we'll get into the game. Before we talk about give kind of the recap and our thoughts on the game, I had a question off top that I thought would be good to discuss, which is who our favorite characters are.
I picked Georgie. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, as it was a text-based game, or Lua. I liked the sort of cop off-duty, hanging out in the coffee shop, doing wisecracks, and just kind of being there for people when they needed it. I think that was a nice character. You know, he didn't have the most interesting arc or anything like that, but he was just kind of a fun character, and I just like Lewis Sprite, to be honest. And also, I think she is an interesting character when it comes to like family dynamics and needs of family and things like that, of something that I feel very disconnected from. So it's very interesting. So yeah, those are my two favorite characters, I think. What about you, Dan?
For me, my favorites were Freya. So Freya is just a human who's a journalist, and she is kind of slacking off at her real job while writing a book on the side kind of thing. I liked her because I felt like she was, I don't know, kind of the audience in a lot of ways. It felt like she was observing it as you were. So she was kind of fun to, even though you played as a character, it felt like you were still living through her almost. So I thought that was kind of fun. And then I liked Aqua's arc too so she's a mermaid, is like shy with being with people and, you know, out of the water and stuff like that. And I thought hers was good. I thought she was a pretty interesting character too.
Yeah, and I'll close the loop by saying also Aqua was one of the two that I selected. Mostly, again, echoing a lot of what you said, that I think she's kind of fun. She's got like really pronounced squishy feet sounds when she walks into any scene, and that was like not probably less than 40% of why she was one of my favorite characters. And then other than that, I really liked Gala and Hyde as a combo, and they are the old friends. Maybe the game kind of hints at something more but won't make it explicit, of a vampire and a werewolf, which hey, tropes are great. I love that shit. And I don't know, I think their back and forth was really good. I think they're the characters that I felt like I believed had the most history. Like the writing sold me on it in a way that I think the rest of the characters I didn't quite get that connection with.
Yeah, I didn't want to copy you, but that was definitely my next pick. But I just didn't, because I saw when you wrote down that those were your two favorite characters, I'm like, shit, he got him before me.
Gotta move quicker, man. Gotta move quicker. Finish the game a day earlier, you get those picks.
Yeah, I like their arc too. That was cool, and I agree. It did feel like you could see that they were long-term friends or more, and that had had a relationship for a long time. And it wasn't just like, I don't know, they bumped into each other at the coffee shop that week, like some of the other ones.
Some people who literally did.
Yeah. Got a little bit of listener feedback for this question, too. We've got Athenaeus on Reddit who said, Freya was super cool, Neil was really funny, and Gala was also a pretty cool guy. Yeah, I thought Neil was funny. He was very weird.
Yeah, Neil was different from everybody else, for sure, in a way. One of those ways where you started that, like I started that day, and he sat down, and I was like, that's a fucking astronaut. I'm turning it off for the day. I don't know that I'm in the brain state of this right now. What is going on?
That's awesome. And then ID on Reddit said, my favorite character was Aqua. It was really nice to meet someone, or to see someone break out of their shell. I thought that was nice, too, with Aqua. At the beginning, like, she's so shy that she doesn't, barely talks, and it's always in whispers, and she always apologizes. And then by the end, being able to be, like, confident and be like, oh, we did this game thing, and, like, all of that. That was nice to see her, like, grow. And the comic or whatever that you get as bonus content, and it was her, like, trying to go into the store for, like, 5 days before she finally did it or whatever. Like, she's just so shy. And then to see her pull it off, it was, like, that was cool.
Also, probably unintentional ID, but I do like the seeing someone break out of their shell in reference to the person that's like a fish person from the water. I don't know. There's like something there that I appreciate quite a bit. Don't know if it was on purpose, but I liked it.
I agree. Super nice. Cool. So yeah, from here we'll jump into kind of the recap of the game, what happened, hitting up highlights, what we thought about it, etc. So the day begins. You are a barista. You work in a coffee shop, and you're in this fantasy world where all sorts of creatures, mythological peoples, all of that stuff are regular people in Seattle. Also, they come to your coffee shop, and so you get an interesting group of characters kind of each day showing up at your coffee shop, giving them drinks, and learning about the interesting or not interesting things in their lives. So day one, you meet Freya first. She's a regular to your coffee shop. Your coffee shop is also unique in that it's open something weird like 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. or something bizarre like that. Like
some hours that would never work in the real world.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, hours that this person has to be independently wealthy. Like, it's being hinted at through the game. Like, they have this because they just want to, not because it's in any way makes sense.
Which, hey, that's the fucking dream. I would love that. I don't know if y'all got this vibe when you were playing through the game, but every other day I was like, I should open a coffee shop, man. If I could just get a small loan of $1 million, I would open a coffee shop. Never been a barista a day in my life, but I think it'd be cool.
Yeah, I felt those vibes too. It was like, I don't really even like coffee that much, but I was playing and I was like, I want this. Like, I wish I was hanging out in a coffee shop right now. Like, it made me feel that way, which was, I don't know, good on them to pull that feeling.
Did either of you drink any sort of hot beverages while you were playing this game to get into the vibes?
Not the first session that I played this game, but I think after the third day I realized I need to be drinking either coffee or tea. There's no way I was going to be able to get through it without doing that in some fashion or not. It's kind of like I started when I was first moved back to where I live now. I watched a bunch of comedians in cars getting coffee, which is like a show that I think is like, it's fine. It's got some good episodes, got some bad episodes, but every single episode I'd watch it and I'd be like, that is the best looking coffee I've ever seen in my life. And if I don't go get coffee literally right now, I think I might actually die. I felt that way a lot playing through this game.
That's funny. Yeah, I ended up having like tea and coffee, not coffee, hot chocolate like a few times after this. Like the first time I made someone hot chocolate, I was like, I gotta get some hot chocolate. That sounds amazing. So they really pulled that.
Yeah, I'll say that I set the scene, and it was morning. It was early morning. I didn't have work. I believe it was a weekend, and I just made myself coffee. No one else was awake. Sat down. Played through it. It was a nice, like, easy read of a game to get going with. And I honestly think I enjoyed it more because of that, because I felt more immersed in that in that space. And it helped a lot with that. And also, like, no one else being awake and that kind of relaxed vibe really helped quite a lot. And then I was inspired by a couple of the drinks. So before my second session, I made, like, tea, ginger, and lemon. And it was super good. So
Nice.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
very fun.
I love that. Did you guys play on, or what did you play on? I played on my Switch, so like the whole time I played, I was like laying on my couch, being super comfy on the Switch kind of thing. But I don't know if any of that improved your environment.
Gotcha. I played on PC the whole time through, so...
Well, I took my laptop to a Starbucks because I really wanted to be super immersed, and I broke a lot of COVID safety rules. You gotta do what you gotta do for the game. No, I just played it at home on PC.
Go to Starbucks in COVID, full immersion. That's amazing.
Yep.
No, that's awesome.
I'll tell you what, no one else was sitting down, so it did feel like the game.
Damn.
I love that. That's amazing. Awesome. So, yeah, that's sort of the setup for the game, how we got set up for the game, all of that. So, day one, right, we met Freya. She's a regular there. She's writing a novel, but she doesn't exactly know what she wants to write it about. She also works for the paper, is kind of slacking off at her job to try to come up with ideas for a book she wants to write.
Yeah. She's like 100%. I think you nailed it on the head, Dan, when you were talking. Like, she is a player insert, like an audience insert character. She's living the, like, full-on millennial life of, like, I don't know, I stay up way too late at a coffee shop. I don't like my job, so I'm trying to do the side hustle thing, but it's literally killing me. I don't know. Like, yeah, strong vibes off of Freya, for sure.
Yep. And then your kind of main thing that happens there is Lua, who's a succubus, and Bailey's, who's an elf, come in. They're talking with each other, and as they're talking, you find out that they're sort of in a Romeo and Juliet type of relationship almost, where it's like elves hate succubuses, and elves live forever and are immortal and stuff, and then succubuses also don't particularly like elves because they're like uppity and assholes and stuff like that. And but they've been secretly dating for like 10 years, and so things have slowly come to a head, I guess. And that, maybe like we should do something more with our relationship because it's been a long time, and sort of the, I don't know, family tension of like, how do we break this to our parents then?
Important context too, if Bailey's the elf decides to, leave his family or be excommunicated, he loses his immortality.
Strong Lord of the Rings vibes.
Yeah.
Which I would not have known if I didn't watch it again a week ago. But I think there's a lot
true?
of... it was a month ago, not a week ago, that I rewatched it. But I think it's like... I like the back and forth between these characters. I like the Romeo and Juliet type vibe that they have. I think this is the other one of the relationships in the game that I like buy in a pretty serious way. Again, it's a lot of high drama, and I respect that.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I really like about this too is I think this is one of the times that they play with the races of the characters being fantasy races. I think it really works for this of being like, let's introduce a new element to this trope about these two different fantasy races and like how that would be more Romeo and Juliet-esque than like you'd said. So yeah. I like this.
There is some racial stuff that I do absolutely want to touch on, but I think it needs more context before anything I make or say would have any sense. So I'll circle back on that one in a couple of days here.
Perfect.
But game days.
But not like in a couple of days, like in a couple of days in this, this game.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Like, I just got off work. All right, it's fine. I'm in a different headspace.
And that's really, our big things. Lua and Bailey's do sort of leave at a standstill, because Lua, on one hand, like, really values family. That's something big for her, too, is like, I really need your family to like me. I really need my family to like you. And Bailey's is a bit more of the, like, fuck it, we're our own family sort of thing, and has that attitude. Yeah. And they sort of leave in a weird space where it's not like they broke up and left, but they also, like, had a serious fight that was unresolved. And that's sort of how day 1 ends. Day 2, Georgie shows up. He's a police officer who comes in and takes extended breaks at the coffee shop. And then also Gayla, who's a werewolf who works at the hospital, and Hyde, who's a vampire who is a longtime friend of Gayla's and is like a model. Apparently in this world, all the vampires are models because they look young and stay young, which made a lot of sense. I was like, that's a good career choice for that.
Honestly, yeah, that tracks. That tracks with how the real world tends to feel about vampires in fiction anyway, so I don't think it's making too many leaps to be like, hey, if that Resident Evil 9-foot-tall vampire lady could be a model, I'm sure she'd make a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of it's just getting to know them. Hyde's in town for work. Since he's a vampire, he's lived a really long time, so you get to kind of hear about the, many adventures his life has been in, basically, but it's overall pretty low-key, and then they head off. And then Freya has her sort of light bulb moment this day, which is, I could write my book about this coffee shop. So many interesting people come in. Yesterday, Romeo and Juliet, a vampire who's a model, all of this stuff, like, this would be perfect. So that kind of gets the inspiration. Yeah, that's really all day 2 really brings. Day 3, Freya shows up eager to find out who's going to be at the coffee shop. What stories will I learn? How can I pad my book? You have Rachel come in, who's a cat shapeshifter. I don't know if there's...
I don't remember.
That's accurate.
What was they're like
Neko
something?
Yeah. They're Neko people. Sure.
Hold on. We can figure this out. We've got the internet.
Yeah. I was like, I saw the name and I was like, I have no idea what that is. But
it doesn't help that they mentioned it once.
Yeah, that is true. I want to say it's Nekopara, but I could be totally wrong on that.
I think that's a different, that's a game.
That's a visual novel. I might be incorrect. That is definitely the name of a visual novel. That does not mean it's not correct.
That's true. That's true.
But yeah, cat shape-shifting type of people.
Yeah.
That I don't remember their name at all.
Yeah. This was the only fantasy person I'd never heard of. Or type, I guess. And she's formerly in a pop group, but she left to go solo. She turned 18 recently, and so her whole thing is like, I'm 18, I'm an adult. I had a fight with my dad. He doesn't think I get the music biz, but I do, because I'm 18. And yeah, it's interesting that she's famous. That's something that other patrons will recognize from here on out, is when she comes in, they're like, oh, you were in that pop group. You're about to do something big, aren't you? That's sort of going on there.
She's going to be playing at the concert that I don't remember the name of, but I know it was a play on Coachella. Coachella? That's it, yep. There's a lot of wordplay in this game that is like, I changed 2 words, or I flipped words around, which is kind of fun, so, I don't know.
Yeah, it made a lot of things, you could recognize them as real-world things, because they just changed it slightly. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because this game takes place in Seattle. I don't know if we mentioned that, and I forgot it most of the time during this game, but it does take place in Seattle in the year 2020, which they got very wrong.
But Alex, it's raining outside. How would you not know it's Seattle?
That's a good point. Could have been Vancouver. I don't know.
That's true. Yeah.
And then the other patron that comes in is an orc who sits quietly. You don't even get their name. They're just kind of there. And then Georgie comes in, and gives Rachel a ride home after talking for a second and is like, oh, you shouldn't be out late. This neighborhood's kind of rough. You shouldn't be walking home on your own, sort of thing. So you get the vibe that from at this point that maybe the neighborhood's not the best one because there's concern of walking home at night.
Also, Rachel defends herself saying, like, it's not a big deal for me to be out on my own because I can turn into a cat, which raises a lot of questions for me about how common these people are in the world and how being a cat is a strong defense mechanism. I don't understand.
They say there's, like, the cat part of town. Like there's a whole part of town where all the cat folk live in. So I would assume that it's a popular, or, like, not popular, but, like, if you were to pool everyone, that they'd have a higher percentage in the population enough that people would know, like, oh, there's a cow walking by. That's probably a cat person. Yeah. And then it raises the question, are there actual regular cats in that world? But that doesn't fucking matter. Anyway,
I think that matters more than anything else that happens in the rest of this entire game, because I'm desperate to know if there's actual pets in this world.
For real. It's also, like, how big of a cat are you? Are you a regular sized cat? Like, that doesn't seem like that would help for defense. Like, if it, you can't run that fast, you can't, like, claw that big.
I would assume that it's more of a, like, I can patrol the streets unseen because cats are very, like, nimble and quick and have a lot of ways to hide. So I'd assume it's more about, like, I can get there safely and not be noticed as, like, this 18-year-old pop idol rather than just, like, a normal cat.
So then do people not know what her cat form looks like? These are the questions that plague me at night, because if they know what her cat form looks like, she's still just an 18-year-old pop idol walking around. So, like, there's a lot of things left unanswered in this game, and they're the important questions are really left unanswered. Like, do people know what you look like when you're a cat? And how tall is Hyde? Come on, we need this sort of information.
Will there be a pegging scene? Sorry. We're all hype off that news, okay? We're all hype off that news. We all wanted to say it. I just had the stones to say it, okay?
Okay, sure. We all wanted to say it.
And that's really day 3.
Uneventful day 3.
Uneventful day 3. Georgie takes Rachel home. Move on to day 4, and you start getting some repeats of people you've met before coming back. Hyde comes back, Freya comes back, and Lua comes back. And they have a discussion about Lua and Bailey's relationship. Lua being, our families need to get along. We have to have this happen to be able to work. Like, I need blessing from his family. He can't give up his immortality. All of that sort of stuff. And in the conversation, Hyde ends up kind of, cutting to the thrust of it or whatever in a straightforward way that maybe you don't be with a stranger. And he's kind of...
Yeah, because his whole point, right, is like, I think that it's garbage that you care about that because you love each other and, like, you are each other's family, and if his family can't accept it, they're not even worth being a part of that family, right? Which is, I think, the conclusion that, like, almost every single person would end up coming to, and, like, at least with our conception of things in, like, the real world. But he is, like, he's just a dick about it. He's just, like, no regard whatsoever for her feelings or her view of things, which I think... This is why I like Hyde and Gala, I don't know how to pronounce his name because, again, text-based game, end up, like, being my favorite combination is, like, not only with the relationship they have with each other, but each of them are so, like, defined in different people. And I really like the idea of Hyde being like, hey, like, I'm, and I think they, like, allude to this but don't make it clear. It's like, I've lived a long time. I've seen this all over. It's just not as important as you're making it out to be. Like, we know how this story ends. And I think that's, like, that's an interesting way to kind of use these characters and they're, like, the fact that he is immortal and she is not, or, lives a long time and she's, a succubus trying to be, like, I think weaving that stuff into these characters' ideologies and ideas about the world is really, really interesting. And I think this is one of the few times that they do it, like, in a way that furthers how I feel about a character, right? Even if he's not, like, being a, like, good dude, if he's just being a jackass about it, it still makes his character much more interesting in this particular scene, I think.
No, I agree. I think your thought on him living a long time, that stood out to me too. It's like his probably perception of everything's different. He, if he's lived 1,000 years or something, he's like, don't waste time doing stuff you don't want to, or, like different things like that. Like, if people are dicks, like, forget them, sort of thing. And he's had a long time to develop that, outlook or whatever. So I thought that was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Also, it raises the question of, like, also, how old is Bailey's, too? Because if he's an immortal elf, you know what I mean? Like, that could be another part of it, too. But also, it sounds like they met in, like, a college sort of setting later on, so maybe he's probably pretty young then. That would make the most sense. I don't feel like elves' ages are scaled.
No. No, I get the impression that he's, like, in his, late 20s, early 30s or something. But yeah, that very, I mean, he very well could be like 250, and that's just how that rolls. In which case, like, Lua's definitely not half his age plus 7, I'll tell you that right now. But I don't know that quite applies if you live to be hundreds and hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, Lua ends up leaving that conversation semi-abruptly and is kind of like, all right, I should go. And then everyone kind of scolds Hyde for being so forthright. It's kind of like, what you're saying's good, but you didn't say it in a way that she maybe could hear it, is sort of the critique that happens. Gala also shows up after this, and he's like, come on, Hyde. Like, I'm your friend. I know you shouldn't do this. You know you shouldn't do this. They've probably had this conversation before about how to treat mortals or whatever. And that's kind of the gist of that day. From here, we go to day 5. A astronaut shows up for a blind date. Is really weird. Talks in pretty strange ways of speaking, and then asks a lot about breeding. And it's like, so where do humans breed? And you're like, what are you? Like, he's very odd. Everyone at the coffee shop is offended by him. The orc from before shows up. We find out her name's Myrtle. And Aqua, who's a mermaid, shows up. And, after bothering you about breeding, then he goes to them. And it's like, so, like, what's with people and breeding? How does this work? And they're like, you're a weirdo. Go away.
Yeah. Neil's got some weird vibes when he first shows up that are like, I would classify them as funny and deeply uncomfortable. That's kind of his whole character arc, is like, aha, oh, crazy Neil, you're like right on the edge of being canceled, my man. You gotta be so fucking careful. This is not okay.
Well, when you learn more about Neil, it gets better, but that's never worked for anyone who gets canceled.
I mean, and then, like, so this kind of shows up here, and it shows up a lot later on, which is like, just to be frank, like, this game kind of wants to be like, I mean, I'll just say it, the game kind of wants to be horny, but it's not good at being horny, right? It's like, it wants to have these characters have, like, some sexual energy between them. It wants to have these characters, like, really have a candid conversation, but it, like, sometimes it's, like, really candid, and they'll just address it and be like, haha, no, people like to fuck, haha. And, like, other times it'll be like, well, Neil, you see, you gotta take people out on a date, and if you're lucky, then, and it's just like, I could not get a gauge on the tone they were going for when they started talking about that sort of, like, everywhere around there when it comes to Neil. A little less later on with some of the, like, other pairings. Most of it isn't around Neil because that's the only time that they're, like, explicitly talking about sex. But it's like, the vibe was kind of all over the place in a way that I didn't like. If you want to be horny, that's fine. Just, like, go for it, though. Don't, like, dance around it. Or if you don't want to, then, like, don't try to half-ass go for it,
Yeah, I had that feeling a lot with different parts of, like, that part and different parts of this game, where I feel like a lot of the times there was a lot of fence riding, and we'll get to that a little bit more later, but I think that's a super valid piece of feedback for that too. And it kind of wraps back around to my overall feelings of this game, which, I mean, I haven't really gotten too much to of yet, but, like, I think that... Hold on. I lost my point here.
You'll find
I'm
it.
coming back around to it.
Give him space. Give him space. He'll find it. He'll find it.
Where it's like this game never feels like it is this great like masterpiece and this like beautiful game that's like top tier or anything like that, but it also never feels like it's trying to be. There's this sort of like very like base level like mediocrity that it's like it's never too amazing or too bad, and it just kind of flows evenly throughout the whole thing. A little bit of a tangent, but I don't know, that just kind of came to my mind, especially with that what Alex had brought up.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot more to dig into there, specifically with the way that it tries to marry a lot of the themes that it's going for throughout the course of the game. But yeah, I tend to agree that it doesn't. I think the only thing I would disagree on is I do think it tries to shoot for like a little bit more than it ends up actually being. Whereas like I think if it just stayed a little more consistently with like this just like a cool, good, chill vibes game, I think I would have ended up clicking with it a little more than I did by the end, because when it just hits that mood, I think it excels. It does really, really well, right? Like when you're just like chill in a coffee shop cracking jokes with some weird monsters and it's raining in the background and there's like some real good lo-fi music, which there's good music in this game, like it rules. And then whenever it tries to like have something to say, I think it doesn't really have anything. Like it's not that it doesn't have anything to say, I think it just doesn't get the point across in a way that feels organic and like well fleshed out in any particular sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I feel like it doesn't make its statements very hard. I feel like it almost more brings the conversation up and then sort of leaves it, which is kind of odd. Like this is jumping ahead quite a bit, so I'm gonna just do it anyway. Whatever. I guess I feel like it fits with the vibe we got, but it's like, it has different issues that come up through the game that are real world issues, but you're learning them in a coffee shop with like fantasy characters, and so in one sense, I think it makes it more accessible, probably. I'm sure people who could, like, get triggered by things maybe don't as much because it's this vibe specifically. Like, it nails the coffee shop vibe. Also, it's got, like, fantasy characters, so they're not real. But you're still bringing up things that happen in our real world now in those contexts, which I think is really good. But I think, like you said, Alex, it's like it doesn't take it anywhere either, though. It's like it acknowledges it and puts it forward, and I don't know, if its goal is to prompt discussion, I guess it does that, but if its goal was to make a point, I don't know that it does that.
Yeah, I feel like it says exactly what you would expect it to say, and nothing more, nothing less, where it's like, if it's talking about racial issues or discrimination when, taking these fantasy characters as the placeholder for it, it's kind of like, that being, racist is bad, and I'm like, and that's it. Like, that's kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, they don't have anything more to say about it other than the fact that it is that.
Yeah, I mean, the central thesis of a lot of these issues end up being like X is bad, and I think that's so. Like specifically, and I'll talk about race because all the characters have been introduced here at this point, which is kind of what I was waiting for. So I will say, like, first off, I came to this game with something of a bias against it already, not like anything the game necessarily did, but again, the game is trying to address racial issues, right? It's trying to talk about, hey, like, here's racism, and doesn't it suck? There's a scene later on which I don't know, it's like kind of a side conversation, so I don't know if it'll come up in the actual recap, but Frey is basically like writing a book that's like, haha, it's racism, but there's only humans, isn't that bizarre? And like I hate this. Like, I hate this so much, because what it does is it's like, racism exists in this world, and see, it's also weird because these aren't humans. You're not like being racist against culture or skin color, it's fully different people. But the problem is, what that's essentially doing is like codifying racism in an actual biological basis, right? You're being like, oh, well, like, racism exists in this world. Isn't that weird? But like, if people are, like, if I'm racist against people of a different culture or people of a different skin color, it's based on nothing but me being a jackass and maybe uncomfortable. But like, racism in this game is like, it's still based on people being jackasses and uncomfortable, but you're talking about like people who live forever versus people who don't live forever versus like people who are, versus orcs that are a completely different species than these underwater people versus like alien. Like, you're codifying these biological differences that people try to prove with pseudoscience in the real world in like actual terms, and that always rubs me the wrong way, which I think is why again, like I don't think the game is trying to say anything bad, but like when the thesis ends up being like, isn't racism bad? Haha, it would be weird if it existed in the real world. I was like, this doesn't work for me at all, because I don't think you taught anyone much of anything, but you did like provide a base world where you would like the racism that people experience is rooted in actual biological difference instead of nothing. And I think that's working contrary to it. And it's, this is by no means the only thing that does it right. Like I think Bright, that like Will Smith movie that came out a while ago, did the same sort of thing where it was like, aha, it's Will Smith and orcs, and the orcs are, a lower class. Like they do this sort of stuff all the time. And I think it never works for me personally. Maybe for other people it does. And like, if so, cool. I might just be missing something, right? Like I'm a white dude. I've never experienced any sort of racism like directed to me in my life. So I'm not speaking from a place of experience here, but it's all that whole thing felt weird to me in a way that I was deeply uncomfortable with for a lot of the game.
Yeah, and they focused on crossbreeding too for a little bit there, which was like, they're like, but imagine if this type of race crossbreeded to this one, and like they would get no insurance and things like that. And I don't know. I think it's very strange, some of the punches they decide to punch on, and then you're like, and let's keep it, and they just say, no, that's pretty much it. So yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, not trying to like cancel the game. I don't think the game has bad intentions. I don't think it's coming from a bad place. I don't think it gets to a bad place. I just think the road it chooses to walk is not good.
Yeah, that's a good call out, because it's their intention, right, is of course racism is bad, but then they miss their punch, and it instead, like you mentioned, provides examples shitheads could use in their favor potentially.
I was just waiting for one of the characters to be like, and let me explain phrenology to you and why the shape of elves' skulls proves that. And I was like, but they did not go quite that far.
Their stuff was limited in that, because the other one, like, this is far less of an issue than race, but like crunch is bad. That was a thing that came up, and it was kind of like, well, yeah, of course, like, I agree with that. I think crunch is bad. I don't work in the video games industry, but I agree with it. But the character who says it works in video game industry, and the people who made this game work in the video game industry. So it's like, yeah, I think we're all kind of on the same page about that. But as far as it went, it was like, oh, I haven't taken a vacation in like a year, and Aqua makes Myrtle take a vacation. It's like...
Yeah.
But what they... sorry. What they don't show you is that when Myrtle gets back to EA, I mean, not EA, and they fucking let her ass go because she took 2 days off of work. It's kind of interesting, because it's like, they're like, crunch is bad, and the game industry doesn't let you take any time off work, and all this stuff. And Myrtle basically just gives you the Aqua just gives you the, well, just don't be sad of crunch, of just being like, well, just take a vacation. And you're like, okay. And she takes the vacation, she comes back, and everything's fine. And it's like, well, everyone should just do that, right? Like, I don't know. It's another thing where they're like, yes, your message is there, but the solution is not realistic.
Mm-hmm. The nuance is not quite there.
Yeah, I think that a lot of this, I feel like, would just come down to like what their actual goal was. If their goal is to like make a point and like, I don't know, really push any of these things, then they definitely missed it. If their point was like, we want to bring a like disarming way for people to think about this, then I would say they maybe sort of did that, but like, it sort of sucks that you didn't go the next way, the next like jump beyond it.
And that is true. They may have not, I don't know the developers of this game. I've never spoken with them. I've never read interviews. They may have been like, oh yeah, we just put that in there because we thought it was interesting for people to talk about. But also, they have newspapers at the start of every day, and those newspapers are always like, Orc Labor Union fights back based on this thing. And it's like, yo, okay, there's one orc, and she's never said the word union ever, so I don't know why you even put that in there if you're, like, nobody has talked about a union, but it shows up in the paper like 7 times. I don't understand what's going on now.
And there's a lot of drama about like Fury sedatives of like, okay, like werewolves are getting the sedative, and they do end up talking about it in the game, but then we learn that it's just fucking tea, milk, and honey, and then you're good. Like, I don't know if that's like a holistic like approach or view on it, but it's very strange that it's like, okay, well a barista found the cure for that, but
but not just a barista. That's all I'm saying. We'll
that's
figure that
true.
out later. In the world's greatest
true.
plot twist, we'll figure that out later.
We've jumped ahead a lot, but we won't jump ahead there.
Yes, we'll get back on the rails and be good from this point on. It just felt like so many confluence of ideas had to happen. Right?
No, I agree. I think that was very worthy of jumping. Okay, let's see. Other things that happen on day 5. Aqua and Myrtle actually find out that they've worked together. They didn't know it, but they've worked on a video game together. Aqua is like a student who works on gaming, and she made something for her, I don't know, senior thesis or something that Myrtle ended up using at her job. Myrtle works on a AAA game that sounds a lot like Metal Gear Solid, basically. And you find out that Freya likes hipster art games, which, again, I think taking the place of the audience makes sense, because you're like, yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. I agree.
Good point.
Freya asks you to read the draft of her book. You give her feedback. Yeah, just kind of move on. Day 6, Aqua and Freya come back and they talk about family. Aqua is the only mermaid in her family who's on land, so everyone else is at the sea. And so she's like come here to be able to like support them from afar, it seems, but then like to, I don't know, make something of herself on land and like trying to, I don't know, grow up or, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I didn't fully follow what everything was going on with when I played that point there.
I think off the coast of it, like of the out of Seattle, is just like a sea civilization underwater, and like they just live completely differently. They have like a ton of kids each, and the culture seems very different down there. Down where it's wetter, down where it's better.
Oh my god.
Come on.
No.
If you don't finish it, then it's going to sound bad.
Yeah. Uh-huh. How do you like it? Huh?
It's awful.
Under the sea. Anyway.
Thank you. I've been released from my mortal coil.
Then Hendry comes in, who we find out is Rachel's dad. He's also a cat person. I also thought he looked kind of like Teddy Roosevelt, so I just called him Kitty Roosevelt in my head.
That's very good. Actually, that's extremely good.
That was just how I always thought of him. And so anything he did, I just had read through that lens in my head. He ends up coming in and like creeps everyone out. Everyone's like thinks he's a perv like Neil, kind of. And he's like,
what do teenagers like?
It's super weird. And he's like, so what are like teens like? And you're like, are you what? Like, get out of here, dude. And then he's like, oh, I'm Rachel's dad. I'm not a weirdo. I just don't understand my daughter. And then they're like, all right, like, don't be weird, but I guess we'll help you.
Mm-hmm.
Georgie comes and he meets up with Hendry to talk about parenting. I guess they know each other. And so Georgie, as a father, gives Hendry advice on, here's how I interact with my kids and have a relationship with them. And so maybe you could try that with Rachel.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, to your point, Duncan, this was definitely the point where Georgie becomes, like, I think a really good character in talking about, like, oh, like, you're gonna fight with your kids. You're not gonna understand your kids. You're gonna fight with them. They're not gonna understand you. Fighting is totally fine as long as you walk away from it and actually understand each other more and aren't doing what you're doing, which is just fighting and not listening to each other, not taking anything away. And that was good. That's the poignant shit I wanted them to be saying about race and labor issues that they weren't gonna get to.
But more importantly, his strategic offering is bribing with pizza. And if I've learned anything about youth groups, that works all the time. so yeah. I think both things valid.
That honestly, that somebody bribed me with pizza today, that shit would work extremely well. Like that doesn't go out of style.
No matter how old you are.
Always relevant. Yeah. If there's pizza, I'm interested. I'll listen. The next day, let's see. Day 7, Gayla and Bailey return. They talk about family. I don't remember anything too significant from this one, other than that. Bailey's talks a bit about like my dad's like a, I don't know, self-righteous douchey elf, like that sort of thought, almost kind of like a rich kid rebelling against his parents. That was sort of what you got from him here. And Gayla provides, I think, kind of probably similar advice to Hyde earlier that Hyde gave to Lua, except it was a lot more like sensible and not so abrasive, so Bailey's could like listen to it.
And I think this is the part of what you alluded to, or one of the times you alluded to, Duncan, where like they actually like, and this actually worked for me because this was when Gala was trying to explain like, hey, there are like, if you leave your family, there will be consequences, and this was where he was like, hey, do you have health insurance? And he was like, no, I'm an elf, and he's like, you won't be anymore, and you won't be immortal, and you could get sick and be bankrupt if you don't have health insurance. So like, you haven't thought things out in a way that, again, like I think that's kind of interesting when they do stuff like that. And I think also like, you know, hey, it's a good thing to think about.
Yeah, it's a lot like losing your elf immortality is a lot like losing daddy's debit card. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna have to like actually work, because I mean he's a freelancer, and a lot of the like towards this part of the game, I think he finishes one of his works and he's just like, I'm done. And listen, I am my significant other is a freelancer as well. That don't happen.
Yeah. It was also, I liked, sorry, the thing I'm trying to get at is it's really comforting to know that in this world where like there's werewolves and there's vampires and there's cat people and there's immortal elves and the entire world is a different place. But even there in Seattle in 2020, America doesn't have universal health care. So like it's a real hurdle that we're all in this together. We couldn't just turn a simple switch or anything like that. It's comforting to know that. I took some degree of happiness walking away from it going, they're fucked too. That's good.
That's right on. Yeah, I guess moving to day 8, Gayla, Hyde, and Freya return, and they talk about how Gayla and Hyde know each other, which is, I think, through the war, that Gayla was in a war before this, and somehow Hyde met him there. Is that right?
It was that Hyde was at a bar and dwarfs were about to beat his ass because he lost a lot of money, and then Gala saved him and became his bodyguard.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, Hyde was, you'll have to get through my bodyguard, and then just pointed at Gayla, and then Gayla fights the dwarves, and their friendship is forged. That's what it is. You're right. Good call. Thank you. Then, maybe that's later. Yeah, that's how they know each other. Then Gayla worked with Hyde for a long time after that, until Gayla started working at the hospital. He wanted to do that instead. Mm-hmm.
There was definitely a war at some point that is maybe World War II. I don't know. We did not get enough clarification on that point one way or the other, but there definitely was a war at some point, and also they've both been alive for over 100 years. So it's possible it could have been World War II.
Right, because you get there's a point, which maybe it's later, but Hyde alludes to that Gayla was a medic in the war, and kind of this dark, mysterious past that he won't tell for Gayla, and Gayla can talk about it if he wants, and doesn't.
Yeah. That's what we get.
Hyde just kind of tells people.
Exactly. Also, Neil shows up again. We find out the astronaut's name is Neil, and he asks more about breeding. They direct him to Coachella and are like, oh, people breed there. Maybe you'll have luck there, basically. And he's like, our species we need to learn about the species here, sort of thing. And they're like, all right, whatever. Go to Coachella. Maybe that will work. Mm-hmm. They also talk about their version of Tinder for a second, which was funny. Trying to get him to get on Tinder, and he's like, "Oh, okay."
I appreciate the advice of being like, hey, just go to Coachella, man. Everybody gets laid at Coachella. It's fine, dude. It's not gonna be an issue.
The next day, day 9, immigration immigration officials send in a guy, I guess, looking for Neil. Ask some questions about him, but you, as the barista, don't give him any info. I guess actually also, this is a good time to point out, as the barista, your dialogue is not optional. It just is what it is. So you couldn't choose to say, oh, I saw that guy or anything like that. Like, it just happens how it's going to happen. But you kind of dissuade the immigration official by being like, who would wear an astronaut uniform if they're trying to hide? That stands out so much. And the guy's like, oh, yeah, this is probably bullshit. All right, I'm going to go back to my office. See ya. Low-key. Aqua and Myrtle return, and they talk about crunch in the game industry, which we mentioned earlier, and also a game festival that Aqua has a booth at. I did like part of this interaction in that Myrtle tries to push Aqua to do what she wants to do. It's like, Aqua, you can do this. In fact, I can come help you. I believe in you. I'll help you. And I thought that was nice seeing at your first meetings, Aqua's so shy and can't do anything, or is too, I don't know, insecure to want to do things. And then Myrtle's kind of standoffish and doesn't seem like she likes people in general. And her choosing to be like, I'll support you. You've been helpful for me in games. I'm starting to like you as a person. Sure, I'll come help you with this. And I've worked in games, so yeah, let's do this. You've got an indie booth. Totally, let's do it. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I've got some mixed feelings about those characters, and I've come to after we've been talking, and this happens a lot whenever I talk about games for an extended time, where I kind of had a problem where I'm like, well, their story just doesn't really go anywhere, because skipping a little bit farther ahead, they do that, and then their relationship strengthens and greatens, or whatever that means in the context of the game. They never say it specifically, but I was kind of in the mindset where I'm like, that's kind of a nothing story, right? Two people meet, they support each other, and then that's it. And I've kind of changed my tune on it, thinking about what we think that this game is trying to do. And I think what they wanted to do is just be like, man, isn't it great when just everything kind of works between two people, and they meet and things between them are great, and it's a good pairing in whatever way the game is trying to do. And while I do wish they were a little bit more specific with it, I'm more appreciative now that I think all they were trying to do is tell you why don't you just feel good about these two characters,
Yeah, I think that's fair. I didn't look at it that way prior to you saying it literally right now, but I think that's fair. It's feel good.
It's not for me, but I could see someone else enjoying it quite a lot.
Yeah, I think they were the lowest drama characters for sure. They each had some drama in their personal lives, but they were more of the hey, you can meet someone at a coffee shop and they might become a good friend or date. I got the vibe that they were supposed to date and then they didn't quite do it, but
yes.
Oh, yeah. 100%. The game didn't say it, but yeah, they're dating.
Yeah,
they're together.
You don't go in a photo booth with someone unless you're dating.
That's the cutoff.
Never once.
Yeah, right. So it's I thought for that as a I don't know, different, message or storyline or something compared to all the dramatic customers otherwise, I thought that made sense, but they also didn't seal the deal either, or make it. They didn't go all the way there as I don't know if this game has done.
I just want to know how can you? I would really like to ask them why didn't you confirm it, or what's the I just kind of want to think, is it because they wanted to leave it ambiguous so you could fill it in your own head of being whether you were happy with the idea that they ended up romantic or not, or I just kind of wonder the reason why, because in a natural storytelling, it would make way more sense for you to just say and then they started dating. And I just wonder the reasoning behind it.
Is there, I forgot to check this because I stopped checking it part of the way through, but there's like an in-game Facebook equivalent thing that just has like profile pages. I wonder if their thing changes at some point to say they're in a relationship. I know one of their pictures changes to include the other one, which leads me again, they do everything short of saying they're dating, but I don't know if they do actually at some point, and I just missed it.
Yeah, I don't know either. I just caught the photo change.
Yeah.
Should I check it right now?
That's hard-nosed investigative Burke right there.
Yeah, I guess too, for a game that, like, if they did deliberately choose not to, like, go there for different points, it seems like this is one where they could have. You know, like, if they were like, oh, we don't want to make a strong stance on crunch culture or something, like, well, you could have just, like, definitively said something like, Aqua and Myrtle are dating, the end. Or, you know, decide they're not. Like, oh my gosh, it was so cool that you found a great friend. If you wanted to go that route, fine, like, say that. But to just kind of leave everything ambiguous is sort of strange.
Yeah. Weird choice, but, you know, again, it didn't bother me too much just because I read it so explicitly. It's like, oh yeah, they're obviously dating now, but, you know.
Right, yeah, that's how
who knows?
Oh, I get it right now. It's because if you, in your mind, wanted to date them, now you know they might be available. If you want to make a waifu out of one of these, Coffee Talk got you. Sorry.
That sucks. Oh, that sucks.
Okay, let's see. What else happens that day? Rachel comes back. A little while later, her dad shows up. They argue. And Rachel storms off. Again, you don't understand me. You don't understand the music industry. You're cramping my style, Dad. Runs off. A little while later, her dad leaves after her, but then comes back. And he talks about that he also used to work in the music industry. That, you know, he saw a lot of the messed up stuff that can go on there. He wants to protect his daughter. You also find out his wife had died semi-recently, and she was like the prime go-between between him and his daughter. That she was the one who could make them understand each other, and he wants to, like, protect her and is dealing with her growing up, but also, I don't know, doesn't know how to talk to people, and so he's, I don't know, frustrating and stuff like that. And he does have info about the music industry, but...
Is this the point where they introduce the manager? Rachel, okay, because I don't remember his name. It's something Lester.
Kennedy?
No, it's like like Maurice Lester or something. It's something that could very easily be shortened to Mo Lester, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me, guys? You're really gonna name the creepy manager that's obviously gonna be a fucking freak Mo Lester? Come on. I was like, oh, I guess it's good to know how that story ends before they get to it. But
yeah, there's a lot of, like, I'm just trying to protect my little girl energy here, and then all of the adult female characters in the room roll their eyes and are like, don't worry about it, it's fine.
Yeah, when we met him and this conversation started, I was like, I bet he's right, but he's not conveying it in a way that anyone will listen. Like, that's how it felt, is like, he's probably right. This dude is probably sketchy, but you're being a shithead about it.
This was another thing where the game, like, it almost felt like the game wanted, and, you know, hey, this could just be like rom-coms do this all the time, right? Where they just, like, artificially build tension because people won't talk. But also, I don't know if they just, like, didn't want to say it or didn't want to, like, you know, initially I was like, oh, maybe they don't want to apply it so explicitly because they don't want to, like, upset anybody who has experiences with this. But, like, then they just do later on in the game. So it's not like that's what they were doing. So I was like, well, why doesn't Henry just be like, yo, that dude is a fucking sex creep, and I don't want my 18-year-old cat daughter hanging out with him. And then people would have been like, oh, yeah, that shit's not good. I work for a newspaper. Let me write a damning article about him or something like that. But it was just like, I don't know. I don't like her getting mixed up, and she's not an adult. And it's like, okay, but not like this, though. Like, you can just say the thing that's bothering you. But...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that's part of, like, what Dan had said is, like, he just didn't communicate it well.
Yeah.
He was frustrated, and this is clearly a character that gets flustered easily. So, yeah, I think...
Just say he's like Neil, but if Neil weren't endearing, you know? And I don't find Neil endearing, but, like, you know.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Day 10, Neil comes in and he asks you to work at the coffee shop. He is like, trying to just breed with females isn't working. I realize that to relate with people, I need to live like a person and talk to them and all of that. And he kind of learns that that's important. And so you're like, all right, sure, whatever. You can work here for one day. We'll see how it goes. But you can't make the coffee because you're a weirdo. Who knows what you're going to do?
Mm-hmm. But you can take the coffee from me and hand it to the customers that are within arm's length of me. This will be a good job for you. Anyway, doing good work out there, Neil.
Exactly. And you can talk to them, but also, if it seems like they don't want to talk, stop bothering them. So this happens. Freya comes in, lets you know that she got fired from her job. That they found out that she was working on her book on the side, and so they let her go. So she doesn't have money, but also she has all this time to work on her book. So let's see if this works. Myrtle and Aqua come back, and Myrtle's talking about Crunch, about how it's bad, it's not good. And Aqua says, you know what? You're going on a vacation with me. That's what we're doing. We're going to Coachella. We're going to do stuff. You need time away from work. And Myrtle relents, and they go on vacation.
We talked about that one to death already, but again, right idea, maybe wrong solution and plan. But, hey, I'm glad it worked out in this particular instance, and she was able to take a break from Crunch.
She also has time for the expose, the
expo.
The expo, thank you. I just lengthened that word for no reason. The expo and this vacation? Goddamn.
I think, didn't she say, my company's going to be at that expo anyway, but we have 50 people there, so I'm just going to dip. It's fine. I wouldn't do anything.
That makes sense. Okay. All right. Point taken.
That one I can justify.
Yeah, that's basically day 10. Day 11, Bailey's and Lua come in separately, and when they come in, they're kind of like, oh, how's the last week been for you? What's been going on? And they both share that they learned things from strangers about relationships at this coffee house, and we're like, oh, I should have understood this thing about family a little more, or I should have understood this thing a little more about being an adult, and that sort of stuff. And they patch things up. They kind of have a reconciliation and are like, okay, I think we can move forward together. Let's try to meet Lua's parents. Bailey's parents they kind of recognize you're not going to win that battle. They're assholes. But let's work where we can. So let's have dinner with Lua's family and let's see if we can make this work there. And that's sort of their compromise to move forward.
Yeah. I thought it was a nice conclusion to their story, right? It's not, they didn't really find a middle ground because there's not really a middle ground to find. They just sort of decided, fuck my family, I'm going to be a part of your family and we're going to make our own now. But again, I think that's where the story was always going to go there anyway, but I liked the ending there.
I have a personal question to sidetrack us because of course I do.
Beautiful.
If you felt like a relationship with someone would truly work, or whatever is in your mind of someone you already have, would you let them be with you if it meant them giving up their immortality if they were cool with it? Do you think you could handle that? I don't think I could. I think I would feel way too bad about it. But also, immortality kind of sucks. But if there are other immortals around you, it wouldn't be so bad. But I don't know. I don't think I could do it.
That'd be I thought about that and I didn't decide one way or the other on it when I was playing through the game, but I do think that's a much harder proposition than it seems to be when it's initially laid out of my family sucks, so instead I will live for 80 years instead of infinity. It's that's what, now that you mentioned that is kind of rough. You would feel,
for the name of love.
I can't imagine a scenario where Lua doesn't feel like she owes Bailey's for the rest of that relationship. She's always gonna be oh well, I have to be anything you want I have to do because you gave up literally your life for me. That's not it's not healthy ground to start a relationship on, but I'm still happy for those crazy kids.
Sorry.
I think that's true, because it's like it would be way easier to be Bailey's in that relationship. Like, I feel like the side of like, oh yeah, sure, I'd give up immortality or something, like it's easier to come on that side, but to be Lua, that would be hard to be on the I don't know, receiving end, so to speak, of something like that happening. I don't know. Maybe Bailey's has to just do his own path on his own and then like get back together with her afterwards. I don't know.
But maybe she'll be dead by
Grim.
Also,
all right.
Also, I didn't give up my immortality to wash the dishes. That's exactly the kind of stuff that I'd be saying,
Jesus Christ.
But yeah.
God.
We should move on. I'm sorry, I had to sidetrack us.
Wow. Oh, that line made my spine feel bad.
Listen, I'm just thinking of scenarios.
No, I get it, man. You've really got it all planned out. I can't wait to read your Coffee Talk fan fiction. Your dark future Coffee Talk fan fiction.
Need it. We need that. After this conversation, Freya comes in and she's looking rough. She had pulled maybe several all-nighters and was not doing well. She asked for espresso, which is what she always gets. You can choose to give that to her, or you can just give her milk so she'll go to sleep. I gave her milk so she went to sleep, because I was like, I don't want to like mess her up.
She's an adult. She can make her own choices. I gave her espresso. I made it as strong as possible.
Okay.
Said, you finish that book.
Now, Dan, I gotta really ask you here. Did you know to do that? Or did you read a guide? Because you're talking to a cheater here. I cheated. But did you know to give her milk?
Oh, yeah, I did. I was in a guide by that point.
Okay, all right. We cool then.
All right.
So
we got one person who's out here willing to accept the consequences of his poor actions and say maybe coffee puts her to sleep. I don't know.
Well,
and then a bunch of people saying I want the real endings. I get it.
Maybe like 2 days before this or something, I'd gotten enough drinks kind of wrong that people were like, oh, that's kind of right, but if you just switch the ingredients, I'm like, well, then say it in that order, douchebag. Like,
yep. Mm-hmm. Hey, did we mention you make coffee in this game? I don't know if we mentioned that part where you make coffee in between.
Yeah. So that's a good point. In this game, you make coffee or various other drinks. They encompass 3 ingredients. It's like your main ingredient, your base, and then like the other thing, your secondary ingredient. And depending on how you like make those, that will be the drink someone wants. You have a couple drinks that are in your like menu, and then other times people just say, hey, I want this drink that you might not have in your menu, and as a barista you theoretically know, but as the player you definitely don't.
It's not. It would be one thing if when they said that they were like, "Hey, I want this drink. I don't know what it's called, but I want it to be like sweet and bitter." Because they did that, and I was like, "Okay, cool. I can figure that out." But then they'll be like, "I want this drink with this obscure name that is all the information you get. You have 5 tries. Do it." It's like, what? No.
I would like a drink from the Middle East that you pour, because I looked this up, like the actual drink. Before I'm like, okay, I'm going to look up the drink. I'm not going to look up the ingredient on it. Mm-hmm. It was a drink that you take coffee and then you pour milk in it and then you turn it back and forth and the coffee brews and the milk kind of like airs up or something like that as you turn it back and forth. And the ingredients for it are just coffee, milk. But how like that process doesn't really work in my head of like, okay, this is a very specific drink that's prepared in a very specific way, but you're asking me to pick 3 ingredients and I don't know if it's coffee, milk. It's very frustrating at times, but I really like when they do the like, I want something bitter and cool, and then you get to kind of like pick the ingredients and adjust the sliders. I really like that part.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, I thought that was better. I guess if your drink couldn't be wrong too, that would be okay. Like I could deal with that if they were like, oh, because when you got those couple where it was like, yeah, that's not really what I was looking for. You're like, all right, I'm gonna fucking quit. Like, come on, like.
They won't let you remake it either. They're like, wow, that is extremely wrong. Oh well. And it's like, no, dog, it's a coffee shop. I can try again. Like, just tell me what's wrong with it.
Right. That's how it felt with Gala a couple times. I'm like, I don't want to like accidentally vampire or werewolf you. Like, sorry, dude. I can pay for your coffee. I'll make another one. Like, but then it's like, nah, I'll just drink this shit. Like, whatever. And you're like,
I also want to ask, because I've gone on many a tirades on the ingredient stuff. Can you have hot chocolate without having milk in it?
Yeah.
Personally.
Oh.
Like you.
I don't like it. I don't like it, but if in a pinch, I could do hot water and hot chocolate mix. I don't think it's good.
Because when a character asks for hot chocolate, it's just chocolate. In my mind, that's chocolate milk, right? Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
I was just confused. I sat there, I retried 5 times to make a hot chocolate, and I'm like, how am I fucking this up?
yeah, I thought that was wrong too. I was like, there's got to be milk in there.
You would think, but just...
All right, my last
No, it's not.
It is! We said everything else. I have no more mechanical complaints.
Okay, actually, though, this is important. Alex, so you gave her espresso. What happened to you?
She stays awake, and so, again, just kind of jumping ahead, and I guess the alternate version timeline, she just, like, does not do particularly well. Like, there's not enormous changes, but you give her the espresso, and she thanks you, and then she comes in the next day and still just kind of looks like shit, and is like, I'm still behind on my book. Whereas, it can turn out and like that I think has an effect on like, you get again, I'm not going to talk about it right now, but you get like an ending that's like, here's, these cards of this ending and here's what happens. And it has an impact on like how well her book does and stuff like that. But I don't know if there's other things that impact that, but definitely giving her espresso was the wrong choice. But again, she's a grown woman. She can make her own choices. All right. Like she's already probably not paying for literally any of these drinks. So, I'll give her what she wants. I'm not here to baby her, all right? She needs to get deadlines, and she passes out and loses the last 8 hours before her deadline. I don't want that on my conscience.
Someone's mad they got the wrong ending.
I'm not mad.
Also, after you give Freya whatever drink you give her, Galish comes in full werewolf and just starts, werewolfing at you. And you're like, okay, I need tea, ginger, and honey or whatever. And you just give it to him, and the werewolf drinks the tea, and then it's fine and runs off. And you're like, oh.
Or maybe you don't give him the right thing, Maybe
oh, no.
You didn't figure it out and you don't have a guide open. And you just be like, I don't know, it's tea, cinnamon? Is this what you wanted? And it's not.
What happened?
That one I did actually get without a guide. I gotta say that.
Look at you. Big brain genius man over here can pick the correct list of 3 ingredients when given a list of 4. Ooh. That has no impact on this scene, but it has big impacts on the next scene. Or the next 1 or 2 scenes. But yeah, he's just, either way, he just leaves after he drinks the drink. He's just angrier this way still.
Okay. So, werewolf Gala runs off. Next day, Freya comes in for Duncan and I. She'd slept well and then had gotten a lot of writing done that day. For Alex, it doesn't sound like it went so well, so that's too bad.
Nah. That book's gonna be bad, I'll tell you that.
Then Gala comes in and apologizes and says, I'm sorry I went full werewolf. It was a crazy day at the hospital. There was werewolf medication that was talked about on the news, and for some reason all the werewolves came to the hospital because they thought the medication was there, but it was more of a policy announcement. So I had to try to save all of these werewolves, and it was a shit show. And then normally when I go full werewolf, I lock myself in a room at the hospital, but all the rooms were full with these werewolves, so I had to walk home. And sorry I burst into your coffee shop as a werewolf. But I don't think I hurt anyone.
Which is illegal, we learn.
Yeah, I do. I forgot they talk about the legality of like what he was doing and whether or not he would be put in jail. Which the answer was no, luckily, but,
Which is the most, like, not American cop thing to do, because they're like, well, he helps a lot of people. So we all talked and we decided that it was okay.
Yep. Oh, God. So that is the part that doesn't happen if you feed him the wrong drink. He's not in day 12.
Oh.
So he doesn't come back because I guess he's embarrassed or is held up somewhere or didn't like calm down and ruin more stuff. Whatever way. He doesn't come back, which then, day 12 has another big thing that happens and he's not there for that scene, which changes the outcome of that scene as well, which is kind of interesting. I wish that didn't happen because I gave him fucking tea and cinnamon instead of tea and ginger or whatever. But,
Interesting.
such is life, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Then Rachel comes in. She's upset about her dad. Complains more about stuff related to Coachella and him and managers. But then her dad shows up and he's beat up. Apparently, in his cat form, he heard some of Rachel's managers talking grossly about her. He decided to bear the claws and go after him and gets his ass beat as a cat. And so then he wanders back here and is in rough shape. For us, which I imagine this is where Alex's difference is, Gala is there. He works at a hospital. He's able to get like a direct line to like the cat unit, and they come. The fire department, I guess. They come and get Teddy or Kitty Roosevelt, and they save him. And Rachel goes to the hospital with him and is kind of recognizing, oh, maybe I was a little hard on my dad, and he got beat up. And that's sort of how your day ends. So Gala's not there for you, though, Alex, right?
Right. First off, I want to say whoever could have seen this shocking turn of events from the people employed by Mo Lester. Honestly, I was floored that they would have turned out to be gross sex creeps. No, so a lot of the same things happen, but because Gala's not there, the ambulance takes a lot longer to get there, and also they do not get the Nico Para specialist to come in as well. So it's just like that goes a lot worse, which later on will result in her dad having like permanent mobility issues for the rest of his life because it took too long for him to get to the hospital. Which, hey.
If your leg breaks as a cat, when you transform back into a human, is your leg broke?
I have to imagine that's the case.
Is it an Animorphs thing? Or is it like a poof, I'm a human now? Or, well, bipedal being. I don't know.
I assumed it was more of an Animorphs thing, but I don't actually...
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure. Clearly the injuries do carry over, though. Otherwise, he could have just been like, whoa, my cat form's real fucked up, but I'm a perfectly normal walking person, so I will walk myself to the hospital, which he could not do.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. Broke real bad, though. Broke real bad. Don't give somebody cinnamon instead of ginger.
Okay, next, day 13, Freya and Georgie return, and you kind of catch up on all the wild stuff that's gone on over the last day. A little while after, Rachel comes, and she says, gives you kind of the background on her dad being beat up. You didn't know that it was her manager's bodyguards, and that her manager was actually scummy like her dad thought. There's a newspaper article about him having like a drug sex party that got raided or something. And so Rachel's like, oh, I know the other day I wished I was at that party, but my dad was right, and I'm really glad I wasn't there. And she's feeling bad that she didn't trust her dad, that he was actually right about this stuff. And she's like, all right, I think I need to, consider his opinion a lot more moving forward. And that's sort of how they resolve.
Yeah. Not much more to say about that other than, I've watched The OC. I know how these things go. I get it.
And our final day, day 14, you get a time jump. It's 2 weeks later. Also, all the other days before this, they weren't necessarily in succession, but they were closer together. Myrtle and Aqua returned. Vacation went well. Festival went well. Their life together, probably. as I would assume, is going well together. That's cool. Bailey's and Lua come back. They're moving in together. They met up with Lua's family since last time. And Lua's family was pretty cool. And so they were, optimistic about what their future could look like. Freya's book is getting published. Max catches Freya up on kind of all the stuff that's gone on in here. And then the last thing that happens is Neil returns and he looks human. And he's not weird like he was before. His speech pattern is more normal. All that stuff.
He's not just a human, though. He's like a hot doctor for some reason. I don't know why that was what they chose to do, but it's like, yeah, that dude probably got laid. Yeah, you're right. Okay, cool. I get it.
Straight up fucking Thanatos American Gods like style, like body.
Yeah. Yeah, he chooses a human form that probably really works for him. And then you find...
Which makes sense. Yeah, you're right, because his whole thing was mating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes sense.
He watched a lot of ER, figured it out.
And then the last kind of big thing that happens is he reveals that, or you reveal, that you're a time-traveling alien like he is. That apparently you've been here for a long time. I guess that's how you're independently wealthy and can run this weird coffee shop. And I guess have probably just been learning about people through this coffee shop, and that's what your kind of role here has been.
Is Neil supposed to be your dad? Is that the implication? Because you're like, I had to make sure I was born here, which leads me to believe that you're there to make sure Neil gets laid because you're his kid. I don't know. They don't say that, so I'm not sure, but that's kind of the vibe I got.
Yeah, that's what I also got, because it's like, Neil talks about like, oh, there's going to be a guardian, and the guardian, like, there's one of them, it's my child, and they're going to have these very, very special powers that clearly only one person has in this world, and I think it would make the most sense for you to be his child.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Kind of a John Connor situation. And
100%.
That's funny. I didn't put that together, but that's a thing that's great about doing a podcast like this, is you get those things you miss from other people.
I put it together literally earlier this recording, so don't feel bad.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, that's basically the game as to what happens. From here, I guess we can move into any general thoughts we have on the game that we haven't been able to hit up. Yeah, I don't know. Do either of you have anything that comes to mind that you'd like to hit up that we haven't got to talk about?
I mean, as long as we're here, like, how did you all feel about this secret ending, right? Because it is technically a secret ending, right? You have to, replay certain days and make sure that you have everything, and like, there's hints throughout there. It's like you start to know things you shouldn't know. But then it also, like, they just sort of weirdly drop it out of nowhere and then don't do anything with it. And I was like, I like how wild it is. Like, I like the idea that they're just like, fuck it. I don't know, you're a time-traveling alien. Haha. But it also, like, I don't know, I kind of walked away from it and I was like, I replayed some levels for this, and it was, like, literally 3 lines of dialogue different. So I didn't, like, connect anything for me in a meaningful way. I didn't... I don't know. I like, did this twist do anything for you guys or anything like that?
I'll go first on that. I think it didn't really, but also you primed me a little bit. Alex had messaged me. He finished the game first and was kind of like, "There's a secret ending," but I didn't really like it, and I'm like, okay, well. Maybe I'll just look it up on YouTube then. And that's kind of just what I did. So my experience with it is like, I finished the game, I typed in Coffee Talk secret ending on YouTube, and I watched the 40 seconds of it and went, okay. And then that was it. So to me, it was just an extended editing. I like the idea, like you had said, where it's just like, that's a wild choice, and it, connects back to Neil in a cool way. But that's about it. I imagine replaying some of those levels and then having to remake the drinks and stuff like that is a little bit frustrating if you don't get a ton of different dialogue.
So there's a button in the top right, which this was very, very good of them to do, where you press it and it speeds through every dialogue and then stops when you get to new dialogue. So you're really only making drinks and hitting that button, but you cannot speed through the animations, so you do have to sit through all of those. But Dan, what about you? Did you like the secret ending? Did it do anything for you?
I think it was kind of like whatever for me. I guess like the two ways I think about it is one, like I think if I wasn't cheating and using a walkthrough through like the last section of the game, then it probably would have meant more, but because I got the right drinks, my shit wasn't going to change anyway. So that's like a me thing. That's not Coffee Talk's fault at all. That's definitely Dan's fault.
Yeah.
But I guess the other side of that is, I guess this would be spoilers for Oxenfree. If you don't want to hear this, jump like 30 seconds if you're a person. But it's like for them having like a secret ending type of thing, that actually made a difference in how you played that game later on. Whereas like this one, I like you mentioned that there's a fast forward or whatever for it, but it doesn't seem... I don't tend to go back towards things, but like Oxenfree, I did do a second playthrough because of how worthwhile it was.
That's a powerful comparison, because I think Oxenfree did like that. I mean, that was just a really, really cool ending that tied into all of the themes of the game and the overarching story, and was creepy and weird and different in awesome ways. So like, yeah, that was... God, that game was good. That game rules.
And maybe that's an unfair comparison because of how well they landed it. But it's like if you're gonna do something secret, it seems like you want to be closer to that than not.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of felt like two things as well, where first off, my shorter point is like, it felt kind of like a Kickstart backer like goal, where it's like, and if we raise this much, we'll make a secret ending. You know what I mean? And which is fine, you know, it's cute. But the other thing I felt like is it felt like it was going for the oh god, the game I was going to use.
Oh no.
Isn't I don't want to drop spoilers for. It's kind of like any fourth wall breaking game where they're like, you can load saves and sort of like modify the timeline and everything like that. They dip into there because it's like load saves, time traveling and everything like that. And it felt like they were looking through the bin of tropes, video game tropes, and be like, okay, this one, I'll grab this one for this situation. But I didn't hate it. It was just a small thing where I'm like, really, we had to go there in the last like 2 minutes of this game.
Yeah, if it was like 5 or 7 minutes longer, and it was like, anyway, here's the wild shit us time travelers get up to, it would have been more fun for me. But you know, again, it wasn't like, oh, this ruins the game. It was just like, I don't, you know, it did not add as much as I think they wanted it to add for me personally. But it was still neat. You know.
Yeah, I think that's something. I guess that we've mentioned it some, but I think is worth kind of in a summary sense for me, at least in this, is like, I liked playing this game. I thought that, like, I don't know, the coffee vibes, all of that, like, relaxing, nice being on a quarantine that we're in right now in our lives. It felt a lot like, it gave me similar feelings to like when I've played Animal Crossing in March last year, or playing like a short hike, like games like that where it's like it's super chill, and it's sort of relaxing to just kind of hang out into. So I thought it really, for me, that really landed, and I liked that a lot about this game. And so I guess to, I don't know, anyone listening or whatever, like, I think I like this game more than it sounds like, but when it gets to the deeper stuff, it's, I feel like that did miss more. But in general, like, experience-wise, I liked it. I would probably recommend it to people, but, like, it's not a, I don't know, world-changing game or something like that, or a game that, like, I'll hold with me forever or something.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, like, I mean, you are right. Like, we are ragging on this game more than it probably deserves, because, like, you know, we're trying to dissect everything it does, and also being critical is a shortcut to sounding more intelligent than you actually are. But that's a whole nother thing. We'll talk about it later. But I think genuinely, like, you are right that, like, this game, it did feel good to play, like, just to exist in that space. And I don't know, like, I genuinely don't know if I would walk away with that same feeling if I played this game in 2019. But just like the deep, unending desire to just sit in a coffee shop for no fucking reason and drink coffee was in every inch of my bones, that just playing this game was like a good, you know, it wasn't a fill-in for that by any means, but it definitely scratched an itch. It's like, okay, you know what, this feels good right now. So I think you are right that, like, quarantine was the right time to play this game, I think.
Yeah, I feel extremely similar to both of you, where it's like, I mentioned this up at the top, where I'm like, this game was not like a masterpiece, or like you said, Dan, like anything that was world changing, but I felt like it wasn't trying to be in a lot of ways, and we've already discussed the death in ways that we felt like it might have tried to be, but overall I think its purpose and its goal might have been more so to provide you with that experience of almost like what I wish I could do if I went to a coffee shop, but I'm not going to talk to strangers because that's scary. And I think that really works for it.
Also, why does nobody in this damn coffee shop finish their drinks? It's got strong, like, teen movie kid walks downstairs and grabs a piece of toast from a full table breakfast sort of vibe when everyone's like, give me this nice drink, and then they'll take a sip and be like, oh, look at that, it's been 3 minutes, gotta go. It's like, what's going on?
That's funny. Yeah, that's I'm trying to think of anything else that... Oh, this was just a weird dialogue thing I noticed, but is everyone called each other like Miss and Sir all the time? And I thought that was an odd choice, vocab-wise. I was like, how do they all talk this way? Like, what's different about Fantasy 2020 in their world versus ours? Like, I don't call anyone either of those things. That's weird.
Maybe it was them trying to bring over a feel of like, here's a tiny, tiny little thing that came over from a very like how we understand fantasy races, like D&D talk, where it's like, sir, bring me the ale. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Maybe that's what it is. That's the only thing I can think of with all these being fantasy races.
Maybe. I don't... I'm trying to remember how much other characters said that versus how much your player character said that, and I honestly don't remember, because I do remember it feeling really pervasive, but I don't remember if everybody said that or if there were certain characters that eschewed that formality. But it did feel a little out of place, but also, I don't know, I found it kind of charming in a way. Like it added a little bit of flavor that they don't like do the legwork to make it feel totally natural, but I liked it. I was into the idea that people were just like, they spoke just a hair differently, just a little bit more formally in this world. Did y'all like the latte art that was in this game? Because you could do latte art, and all it made me want to do was like, I should try real latte art, because this shit's actually impossible to do anything other than a heart, and that's the only thing I could do.
I did it, and then I tried it once. I'm like, this is odd, and I made like a weird squiggle dragon at some point. And then I had my significant other walk over, who was a previous barista, and I'm like, is this close? Is this close to real life? She started clicking around, dragging it, playing with it, and she just went, no. So no, not really. but it was still like kind of fun. I did it like 2 or 3 times but then kind of after that the magic wore off, but that's to be expected. Just a fun little thing.
Yeah, I did it only a few times too. The first time I did it, I like fucked up and accidentally just like made a dot and gave it to him, and he was like, well, I guess that's art. And I was like, all right, I didn't even mean to do that. So I felt embarrassed while playing a game, which was weird. But yeah, after that, same thing. I did like a shitty heart or something like that. But it was nice as an idea, and I bet it could be executed by people better than I did.
And I mean, it didn't take anything away from the game.
No.
It wasn't like, and the latte art offended me personally. It's just like, am I just bad at this, or again, it's fine. You're only required to do it literally once, and it doesn't matter what you draw. So, still, it's neat that they added it. At least I respect that. I don't know. You guys have anything else generally? I think everything else I wanted to say we covered in the overview.
No, I think I'm
Yeah, me too. I feel good. I feel like that's a wrap for Coffee Talk. I feel like we hit up, I don't know, everything relevant, I would say. So we do have a little bit of listener feedback from people, so I'll run through those for us. First up, we've got Alan on Twitter who said, entertaining little coffee game, which, yeah, I'd say that's pretty on point.
Yes. Put it on the box.
And then we've got Celeste on Twitter who said, I adore it. It reminds me of Hemingway's A Clean, Well-Lit Place. And I compared it in an article, and she sent in an article she wrote comparing the two, which sounds cool. I don't know that Hemingway story, but I need to check the article out, though. That sounds super cool. And I'll retweet that, too. So, yeah, people should check that out for sure.
Yeah, no, that's without having read either that article or that Hemingway story, that's still a really cool thing to have done, and mad props.
Then Athenaeus on Reddit said, my favorite OST to just chill out to. A really relaxing game with no stress, fun, and memorable characters. I like that. I liked the OST. It was nice. It felt like a coffee shop. All of that really landed, and yeah, I think that chill vibe part worked for sure. Mm-hmm. And then last up, got ID on Reddit who said, my favorite part was without a doubt the music and the background art. The music feels very New Jabes inspired to me, which New Jabes is my favorite artist, so that's really nice. I'm not quite sure why I love the background so much. It's just really calming. I thought this game, I think with what we hit up with quarantine stuff, it's like it did feel really calming the whole time. Like, even when dangerous things were going on or like, people's lives were in turmoil or something, I still felt calm behind the counter. Like, as the barista, I'm still the observer. Like, I don't have anything going on. I'm over here. It's okay. And so it did feel...
It's the rain. It's 100% the rain. Have you all ever...
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you felt this way during quarantine, and maybe I'm like putting a target on my back, but there's definitely been a couple of points where I was like in my living room, like haven't left my apartment in a few days, and I'm like, you know what, just put on one of those like 7-hour coffee shop facade YouTube videos. It's just like it looks like a coffee shop and it's raining in the background, and that is the exact same type of like, I'm just calm in this space. It's just calm and nice, and I like it. And if you haven't, I recommend doing it because it's chill.
I've done that when I was working a couple times. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, awesome. That's Coffee Talk. So now we'll transition into stuff about Thoughts from Player One and get to hear more about their show and different stuff like that. So I guess first up, if people didn't know anything about Thoughts from Player One, just tell them about your show. What do you guys do? What's it like? Blah, blah, blah.
So we are in the same vein that this is. It's another podcast primarily focused on narrative video games. You would not know that based on our previous episodes, which were about things like Dark Souls and Bloodborne and soon to be Sekiro. But primarily we do focus on narrative video games. We just took ourselves a little stroll into a different space. Mostly it is Duncan and I for most every episode. A couple of guests, a couple of recurring guests. I think that. It's pretty chill. We also do stream on Twitch now. Usually once or twice a week we've been streaming on Twitch. So that is, again, same name, Thoughts from Player One. So just kind of, focusing on a lot of fun and cool stuff like that.
One time we played a zoo game and it was very funny.
We have
so you can
two very well edited YouTube videos that was supposed to be a series called We Must Build a Zoo, and I promise you episode 1 of those 2 is really worth checking out. It's so good. Episode 2 maybe not as good. Episode 3 is in the trash can for a reason. So,
That's awesome. That's great. All right, how about this? Actually, you guys have a strong answer to this too. But what have been some of your favorite games that you guys have gotten to cover on the show so far?
Oh my god. I have gotten to, as I'm sure the rest of you are aware of, like podcasting for games and stuff like that, is I've gotten to play so many games that I've fallen in love with that I don't think I would have played unless I had this experience with it. And so some of those that stand out to me most are probably, well, definitely Outer Wilds. That is our top tier game, I believe. When we did our tier list,
cannot stress enough a strong recommendation for Outer Wilds. It is without a doubt one of my top 5 video games I've ever played in my life. So check it out.
Yeah. Nier Automata, obviously. A couple like background ones, like a couple deep cuts, like Later Alligator. Like that was such a beautifully like relaxing game. If you like Coffee Talk, I bet you'd like Later Alligator. But any other games that we've covered so far? Of course, Life is Strange.
Yep.
Of course,
Return of the Obra Dinn. That was
Return of the
I might
Obra
not
Dinn.
have played that one, but that game absolutely whips. So
Definitely. We also had a really good intro for that one. But yeah, I think those are the games, some of the greatest games we've covered so far. But also, I will say this one more thing. We did every Sonic Adventure level in a series called Follow Your Rainbow. And it has been, thinking back on it, it is one of the weirdest but most fun things we've ever done. But yeah, that's some of my favorite things we've covered.
Yeah, ill-advised, but absolutely just a play. Hey, if you want to play along with that one's not hard. It's 20 minutes.
No.
And then we talk 20 minutes to play 2 levels, and then we'll talk about them for like an hour and a half.
It's never that long.
No, that's good. We'll talk about them for 40
minutes.
minutes, and then we'll talk about the Property Brothers for 15 minutes after that, and that'll be good.
That's awesome. I really liked the tier list you guys did. I thought that was a really cool idea when that episode came out and you just ranked all the games that you'd played over the podcast. I thought that was super cool.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It would be cooler if it wasn't 3 hours.
That one was funny because as I was listening to it, like every 40 minutes or something, you're like, I don't know if this should be this long, and I was like, nah, let's just keep going. Like like it came up a few times, and you're like, nah, fuck it, let's keep going, and it was great.
That episode was for us. I maintain that. That was an episode for Duncan and I to enjoy, and other people, we didn't focus on how they might feel about it in the episode.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was super fun and liked hearing how you thought about games because I was like, okay, if it's games you guys like, I probably like them, so I should put them on a list to play now.
Hey.
Yeah, and like you said too, I feel like I've had the same thing of like I played so many games I wouldn't have played if there wasn't a podcast that quote unquote forced me to play them. Obviously, I chose the game, so I'm forcing me to play them. But like if I didn't have that exterior motivation or whatever, I probably wouldn't. I would have played the games I already know and like or something and left it at that. So no,
yeah, it's a surprisingly good way to broaden your horizons. All you have to do is set deadlines on your hobbies so they become like a hair less fun, and then you'll get so much more out of them in the long run. But oh boy, you're gonna be stressed.
Exactly. Awesome. What about this? I don't know if you have anything you'd want to tease, but do you have any like upcoming episodes that you're excited about, or maybe a game that you're hoping to play in the future?
Yeah, so I guess the first thing I'll say is one of the episodes we are going to be recording relatively soon here in the next week or two is going to be on Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc, which is the reason we are going to be playing that is, or talking about that, is because we streamed a full Twitch playthrough of it, which ended up being 41 hours long, which was too long for a 25-hour game, but you got to do what you got to do. So you can check that out if you're interested. But that was that's an episode we're excited to record and like sit down, and divorced from trying to be entertaining in the middle of a Twitch stream and doing funny voices, excited to kind of pick apart why we liked why we liked that game, what worked about it, what didn't work about it, what was like just really uncomfortable to have to say on a Twitch stream because that game goes some weird places. So very excited to do that, and I'm not going to make any promises here, but there's like a strong possibility I'm going to push very hard for Duncan to play 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim once I finish it, because that game whips so far, and I think that would be really interesting to talk about. But I'm not making any promises, because that also is like a 35-hour visual novel that's real complicated, so who knows if we'll actually end up doing that. Yeah, I think... Yeah. We don't normally plan more than like 1 or 2 episodes in advance on it. To be fair, we actually do have a couple of submissions on the back end that people had requested we play that we are excited about, but a lot of them are like vibes that I want to be in the right mindset to actually go into. A couple of them are like October vibe type games, so have not gotten to those yet. But and I'm not going to announce them in case there's absolutely we play them and we end up not liking them and don't do it or something like that. But definitely a couple of things on the back burner that we're working on, but we are very much of we finished that one, episode's out, what are we playing? Oh god, what are we playing? An episode has to come out in 2 weeks. Oh god, it needs to be 3 hours. Oh god. It's a strong vibe. I like it.
Oh yeah, living on the edge. I totally feel that. But definitely been there quite a lot. Cool. I guess this... yeah. All right. I guess last kind of thing is, where can people find you? So if people want to check out your podcast, check out Twitch, all of that stuff, where can people find all your stuff?
You can find it on most places you can get podcasts. So Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, all those great places. We have a guarantee that if you can't find it on a website, we will take it down. So you can find us everywhere. We have a Twitter where we post the episodes. That's at Thoughts from P1. We have a Discord server as well, where we still post our episodes, but also have brief discussions. We've had some good stuff pop up there every once in a while. And the Twitch, obviously, twitch.tv/thoughtsfromplayer1. And I think that's about it.
Yep. And all of those are...
And the YouTube channel, but it's all linked and stuff.
And all those are Thoughts from Player 1, ONE, not the numeral 1.
Unless it's the Twitter. Then it's the number
sorry,
one.
that is true. Actually,
P1.
Twitter is Thoughts from P1. That one is bad. Look, don't put numbers in the name of a thing you're doing. That's the number one lesson I've learned from 4 years of podcasting is don't put a number in your name or it will plague you for the rest of your life.
And Dan, before you close it out, I want to thank you so much for allowing us to speak with you on The Greatest Story Ever Played.
Yeah, it's been a ton of fun. Thank you so much. I think it's been really interesting and really appreciate the opportunity, and also because Coffee Talk was kind of on the list of games I wanted to play anyway, so you giving me the impetus was even better than normal.
I will say, though, you have a 4 worded podcast title about narrative video games, and we also do, and I think there can only be one, and we will be going to war.
Oh no!
I want to formally make an apology here. Duncan, I appreciate that you declared war. They do have a 5-word title for their narrative game focused podcast. So we are actually going to call a ceasefire. It was a short-lived war. There was a lot of tragedy. Gala was caught up somewhere in the middle of it, but everything is back to normal now. We are good. Unlike Highlander, there can be more than that.
Is the really a word, though?
Is from really a word?
Shit. All right, I'm done.
I'm glad it was a misunderstanding and only a brief skirmish. No, yeah. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Also, all your stuff will be linked in the episode notes. So if you're listening to this and you want to find that is very there. Check them out. Highly, highly recommend it. I really enjoyed going through their Life is Strange series and a bunch of other games. The itch.io extravaganza things are really fun. To hear you play weird games that I would have never heard about, all that stuff. Super fun. But yeah, highly recommend that, their show. And again, thanks so much for coming on. If people want to get in contact with us, they can do that on Twitter at StoryEverPod. Our website's TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed.com. That has a backlog of our episodes. Anything you'd want to listen to there. Our Patreon is patreon.com/TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed. For as little as $1 per month, that will get you access to a monthly episode we do that's topical in nature. So talk about things like ranking the Life is Strange episodes, who our favorite Pokemon are, stuff like that. So if that interests you, check that out. And that's the episode, and we'll see you next time.